So welcome to Warriors Digest. I'm Arthur Ballesteros, joined by the OG, the legend of the channel, Randy Silver. We're here today to break down what the hell is going on with the Jonathan Kuminga situation, the updates, and some other things that we're seeing going around here. Draymond Green speaking out on several topics. Who's left for the Warriors to sign? It's been no activity for the Warriors so far, which is just insane. But we're going to break it all down and maybe some of the reasons kind of behind it and what direction the Warriors could go in here. So thanks for doing this, Randy. I know you're super busy. You've got, you're actually reporting on TV on real news and everything going on there. So thanks for taking your time to join today. And yeah, this will be fun to kind of break it all down.
I may be a Cornhuskers reporter now, but gold and blue runs in my blood. We're always going to do this. And the fans, first off, hi everybody. And everybody loved what we did pre-free agency, talking about what the Warriors could do. Now that we're week in, we thought it was a great idea to talk about our thoughts of what the Warriors have, or more likely, haven't done.
Yeah, I think we had some great ideas for them when we did this before free agency started, and hopefully we can kind of get to the bottom of some of this here.
Yeah, and the chat, we read everything you guys say. We know that you guys had great ideas too. So I think it takes us, Arthur, to, I'm sharing my screen now. What has the NBA done and what have the Warriors not done? We are now the only team, folks, that has not done anything in free agency. One more time. The only team that has not done anything in free agency.
I mean, this is just sad. There's been a little bit of things like picking up player options on Guy Santos and Quinten Post and things like that. But other than that, just absolutely nothing. It's sad to see. There was so much hype around this, and people are expecting a ton of movement with Jonathan Kuminga. But this doesn't scare me, I think, as much as maybe it did before. The more I look into it, the more I kind of research, it may be the best move to kind of stand pat at the moment here because they're handcuffed with the Kaminga situation. So it's better to not force a move right now, a bad deal like we're seeing coming out with the Kings and that joke of an offer. So it may be better to have no activity instead of bad activity right now.
And if you've been having a hot boy, hot girl summer in Europe, and this is the first time you're hearing anything in free agency, they update you. Kuminga's still unsigned. Warriors gave him a $7.9 million qualifying offer. He can sign that, and that means he'll be a free agent next offseason. Either A, that's option A. B, he could get an offer from a different team. Reportedly, he wants $25-30 million. He's not got that, reportedly. Or option C, he signs with the Warriors for, say, 10, 15, 20 million. It's part of a sign and trade, which Arthur talked about with the Kings getting not Malik Monk back, which I think would be a good thing. Brooklyn, we talked about potentially. Cam Johnson is traded to Denver for Michael Porter Jr. That's not a thing anymore. So there's really not a lot of options out there. Personally, I think a Josh Giddey trade, who's a restricted free agent as well, has not signed for Kaminga, could be a win-win for both teams. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it would. I don't think from everything, like I've been listening to a lot of the Bulls podcasts and reading a lot of what their beat writers are saying. Chicago seems to still really be high on Josh Giddey. And so
they just traded for him last year. So there's
yeah,
validity there.
Yeah, I don't know if that's completely realistic fully because I think that they want to incorporate Kaminga into that young core. They want Giddey to be a part of that young core. So I still think a lot of that is a pipe dream. And I know we talked a lot about all for months since the trade deadline about the Warriors' interest in Nikola Vucevic at the center there. I was seeing reports out that the Warriors aren't really interested in that anymore, which is interesting because I think it shows you kind of the Warriors may be shifting directions here a little bit, knowing that they've got Horford in the bag, but it just hasn't become official yet. And so they're really looking to move Kuminga for another wing piece like Giddey, but I just don't know if Chicago gives that up. I think that the Warriors don't have a ton of leverage here to be able to get a star potential player like Giddey back.
And I did see a report last night. This is recording July 8th, so July 7th, that Horford's really thinking about retirement. So maybe he's not in the bag as we thought. It's us, Lakers reportedly. Retirement is a real thing. He's a champion. He's earned, I want to say, at least $100 million in his career. He can go sail off into the sunset. So Arthur, what I think, though, is like the problem is we're looking at this list of players traded, signed. We talked about Brook Lopez a lot. We talked about Vucevic with the Bulls. I think he could be a nice backup, but there's really nobody out there. And in a couple minutes, folks, we'll show you the best free agencies out there. Free agents still out there. But looking at this list of teams who've done something, What is your thoughts just on a grander NBA scale? What team has had the best offseason so far?
I mean, the Nuggets and Houston have
Yes.
significantly upgraded their roster. They've made a number of really smart moves. And I think that that's a major problem for the Warriors because if you looked at what, kind of where obviously we beat the Rockets last year. Now they've upgraded. They've got that go-to scorer in Kevin Durant now. They still got the young athletic team. They've still got defensive monsters in the paint there with Şengün and Adams.
Yeah.
And the Nuggets, who were kind of middling, what were they? They were the fourth or fifth seed. There
Yeah.
was a
Fire the
point,
coach 2 weeks before the playoffs.
right, right. There was a point there where you could maybe make a case that the Warriors were kind of neck and neck with them a little bit, at least coming into this upcoming season. But they've both gotten significantly better. Every team around the NBA is either making moves to get some salary cap relief or especially in the West, they're just getting better. And I think that that's bad for the Warriors. This competition is going to be even tougher to get through the gauntlet of the playoffs. And you look at where the Warriors slate in now, they may still be a potential fringe eighth seed, play-in seed. It's not looking good right now, but there is still a long way to go here. And we see that the Warriors, they made significant moves at the trade deadline to upgrade. So there's still some hope out there.
Correct. And if we look at just the West Coast teams, I'm zooming in on this video. I mean, first off, East Coast teams, Celtics got better by subtraction with Ben Simmons. Excuse me, Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons not in the Celtics. With Jason
Yeah.
Tatum out for the year due to the Achilles, they got rid of their salary, which will make them more competitive in the future without the limitations. Dallas, you have to think got better, getting a backup point guard with D'Angelo Russell, extending
Right.
Kyrie Irving. Hopefully he comes back healthy. You already touched on Denver. Golden State, nothing. Pelicans, Jordan Poole, getting rid of McCollum, going to the Wizards. They get Kevon Looney. Thank you for your service. Minnesota probably gets better or stays the same by re-signing
Yeah.
Julius Randle and Naz Reid. The
Hmm.
Bucks on the East Coast got much better. Got rid of Damian Lillard. Wasn't going to play this year with the injury, unfortunately. But then you get the big man in the paint, Miles Turner, to try to
Right.
keep Giannis there. Big for them. Memphis, extend Jaren Jackson Jr., who you think potentially could have been out if the team wasn't going the right place. They get they traded KCP for Cole Anthony, a better shooter for them. The question is what happens with Ja Morant. Lakers re-signed Jackson Hayes, signed DeAndre Ayton, signed Jake LaRavia. You think that they probably stay the same, if not maybe a bit better. You touched on Houston. OKC re-signed Shea Gilgeous-Alexander to the most expensive contract in NBA history. They're only going to get better now that they've gone through the NBA championship.
Yeah.
Suns probably get better by getting Dylan Brooks and Jalen Green, a better fit around Booker because it wasn't working with Beal, who maybe we get him, Durant, and Booker. Portland probably gets better with Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
Buy out DeAndre Ayton. They get youngsters playing. Sacramento probably stays the same. San Antonio, you think will be better next year with Wemby not being hurt with the blood clot and De'Aaron Fox with the injury. They signed and traded him again. Jazz just continuing to get better by getting younger players. So, like, who in the West is getting worse?
I
This
know,
team
I know.
Right here.
Right. Yeah. I do think that the Jazz, with their latest move that they did, they get a little bit worse, but even though they're saying they're not continuing to tank, they're clearly continuing to tank by shedding some of these players that would elevate them a little bit here, and they're getting basically nothing in return here. They're still tanking, but I mean, it's just so stiff, so tough. Yeah, the Warriors not making any significant upgrades, but it's not over. There's still time left, but I think that this Kaminga situation is going to drag on. I do think that he ultimately is going to be coming back and get moved at the deadline. I think that's the best move for the Warriors right now in order to get the full value in return or get something else when you see other teams more desperate. Yeah, I don't think you're seeing the desperation like we saw at the trade deadline with the
Yes.
Heat. They were desperate to get rid of Jimmy Butler because of the toxic situation that he was having going on in the locker room there. So you never know what happens as the course of the NBA season goes on, and you will find a team that is more desperate to move on here and try to get something at the deadline and be able to offer something up. I think Boston is an interesting name to kind of keep an eye on, depending on how their season goes and the anticipation of Tatum coming back the following year. They could still be looking to shed some parts like Derek White. So I just, yeah, and Anthony Simons, who they just got, I don't see him being a long-term fit there. He
Hmm.
could provide a little bit of a scoring punch for the Warriors. But obviously, there's so many things, dominoes, that need to fall into place. But the Warriors still just handcuffed by Kaminga. And
Yes.
I mean, they
And
kind of did this to themselves here by lowering his value with all the talk and stuff that was released to the media.
And that takes us to the second topic is what free agents are still out there. So that's a great segue, Arthur. I'm showing right now Brett Siegel's tweet looking from point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center still out there. For point guard, restricted free agent Giddey. Again, does he go back to Chicago? CP3, does he come back to the Warriors? We know his family lives in LA. He wants to be closer to his family. Clippers apparently want him back. Ben Simmons is on that list. Russell Westbrook is on that list. I would take Wilson at point guard. He'd be a great backup point guard for this team. We saw the good and the bad with Denver. Shooting guard Bradley Beal could come in and shoot. Doesn't play defense. I saw a new report this morning about D'Anthony Melton maybe coming back to the Warriors. GP2 still out there. Small forward, not much. Power forward, the big name is Kaminga. Kevin Love, could he be a bench player for you after getting bought out of Utah? And forward, you have Thomas Bryant, Taj Gibson, and Al Horford. And we get a center, so there's not a lot there.
Yeah.
And one thing, and I want to hear your thoughts, is you talked about desperation. Warriors were desperate to do something at the trade deadline last year, and that's where the Butler trade came. You talked about the Heat. There's no desperation to do anything right now. They're willing to stand pat and see what happens with Kaminga, and I think it's going to cost us in the long run.
Yeah, no, I do too. And I think that a lot of the dynamics have just changed with so many different teams here. And I think that the Warriors are going to lose out on some of these guys that they're connected to. I know that the chatter has increased around Bradley Beal, especially with the new report yesterday that you reported on. You can check that video out on Warriors Digest, that he was interested in the Warriors, which was an interesting new wrinkle there. But I don't think that the Clippers make the move that they did yesterday if they don't already have an indication that they're going to be able to sign Beal when he does get bought out by the Suns, which is supposedly going to come any hour now. The Warriors still think are just really limited. I think that the D'Anthony Melton thing is interesting, and he knows the system. He wants to prove himself coming back from that ACL injury.
Yes.
I think he provides some quality minutes there, backup guard that we could get
and
in.
Curry were the best 1-2 guard in the NBA until the injury.
Yeah, no, I do think that
Statistically.
there's something there, but I think that we now need to kind of lower our expectations for who we're going to be adding around the fringes here. And I don't even know if somebody like that is doable. I know there's been increased talk about Malcolm Brogdon out of Washington and them trying to do some sort of sign and trade there. I don't love that. He's
No.
so injury prone. I think he's played 20 games last year, although he is solid. But I mean, the Warriors really pigeonholed themselves here, and I think the only moves they're going to be able to make is via trade. And we just see how complex it is to get some of these things done right now.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think that they're kind of stuck, but it's interesting to see as all these reports come out, contradictory things, new reports every day. It's just a constant flood. I think it is really important for us as Warriors fans and just fans of the NBA to kind of understand the landscape of why these things come out in the first place, and that there is an agenda being pushed by one side or the other, whether it be the team trying to influence there or the agent trying to influence there. And I think that a lot of the reports from The Athletic and guys like Anthony Slater are really interesting because they're notorious, not notorious in a bad way, but they're just known for having a different level of connection with a lot of these NBA agents, and they get fed information. I know people don't like us always talking about the rumors and things like that, but a lot of that is real information that is being leaked to people in the media for a reason, to either try to inflate somebody's value or deflate it, or get some sort of move done there. So there is, I think, a lot of truth to this, and I think the Warriors want this information out there that they are trying to do something so that fans don't get upset too much at Mike Dunleavy. But
The comments say different.
I know, and I do believe that he is really working the phones. I think that the reports show it, but I think it's just interesting and important to take those things into consideration when we look at these reports that come out. They're being pushed for a reason because either the team or the agent is trying to get something done on one side or the other. That's why I think the Kings thing is really interesting because I do think that the Kings front office tipped off reporters in Sacramento who ran with this story because I do think that the Kings have a narrative that they want to develop, that they're really, trying to make some moves here. We see that those things didn't happen.
I think Kaminga, Keegan Murray, and Sabonis, pair that with Zach LaVine, that's a deadly four. Because Kaminga can play the three and doesn't have to play power forward, which Brett Siegel has him at, and what Kerr has him at. He's not a power forward.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I do think that, when it comes to the Kings also, I do just think that it's unrealistic to expect a trade there. The last thing the Warriors would want to do is trade him to Sacramento and then be facing him. Exactly. And I brought this up before in other videos, but the Kings and Warriors haven't done a deal together since '91 in the disaster of the Mitch Richmond deal for the Warriors. And I think that leaves a lasting impression on how these things can affect a franchise's ability to move forward here. So just think that, we got to temper the expectations and really understand where these things are coming from, the motives.
Yeah, and again, breaking it down, the Warriors have $36 million in free agency to play with to hit this second apron. The second apron puts you in purgatory from building your team now in the future. Kaminga, if he gets 15, 20 million, that gives you 15 to 20 million to use for the rest of the free agency. If he doesn't sign or there's a trade, then of course that bites into it. If he doesn't sign at all, now you have 36 million to go out there, but now there's many free agents who are no longer on the table. And what are you going to give? Because you have to spend your money. You're going to give Marvin Bagley III, give him the bag 3 years, 60 million because you have money to spend. It's a bleak market out there beyond Kaminga, so it feels like all their eggs are in the basket to bring him back. I think personally, give him either if he wants to bet himself, he does a qualifying deal, signs it, 7.9 million, free agent next year, or do a 2-year deal, 3rd-year player option, line them up with Steph, Draymond, and Butler's deals, and see what happens after that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would probably be the best case scenario right now, with the caveat that I think that the Warriors still would move that contract at the deadline. They just want to get it at a decent number that is movable, that they can match. I think that the Kings offer was also interesting because it gives some insight into what Kaminga's value is right now. When you look at what they offered,
2 second rounds.
Yeah, well, Saric and
a backup point guard who was a rookie last year.
Right, but Devin Carter, but their salaries, when you look at them, it adds up to about $10 million. Knowing that Kaminga's outgoing value is only 50%, seems like the market for him may be around $20 million, or at least that's what Sacramento was potentially willing to pay there. So just, interesting to look at. But if he does walk or the Warriors, don't get enough in return, they still have a lot of flexibility with the cap then either to absorb a bigger salary in a trade later on in the season.
Correct. And if he walks, that'd be another draft pick. You look at Wiseman, did not work out. Kaminga did not work out. Moody got a 2nd-year deal. Is that on the front office or is that on the coaching staff? That's on both.
Right. See, my take a little bit is it's more on the front office because when you look at some of these guys who were busts for the Warriors and didn't pan out and got moved to other places, they didn't really develop anywhere else. Like Wiseman, I know there's a lot of talk about the war. Yeah, and the Warriors not developing him and things like that. But I think when you look at a lot of Bob Myers draft picks in the later end of his career as GM with the Warriors, none of them panned out either here in, the way that we expected them in Golden State or other places, really. I mean, Jordan Poole is kind of an outlier. But I just think that it was a lot of bad drafting for a long time. And they were in bad draft spots as well outside of the Wiseman year. So I put that more on the front office, but that's debatable. You can debate it all day.
And then that takes us to our final topic, which is it feels like nowadays you have to build through the draft because of this new CBA. And the one and only Draymond Green is never scared to share his thoughts on what's happening in the NBA. And he tweeted about the CBA. I have it up on the screen right now. Long story short, he was basically saying we as players messed up because we allowed in our negotiations the CBA to come in. Owners used to have to spend a bunch of money in free agency to get players. Now people got money on day one, and now it's just dried up because the owners are so scared to go into purgatory with the second apron. It's not just player construction and and building your team. It's the taxes that these owners have to pay. There's always been a luxury tax that you have to pay, which is like millions. But now if you're above the second apron, you're paying like hundreds of millions of dollars for your team. If you're not competing for a championship, why is a filthy rich owner who has the money to theoretically pay it not want to do it? There's a reason why they're rich. They know how to pinch pennies and things like that.
Right.
So look at the Celtics as an example. They're not competing next year without Jason Tatum, so they rip their team apart to not have to pay the second tax apron salaries. And that's what Draymond's saying here. It's our fault of players not understanding this and allowing this to happen.
Yeah, and I do think that this, when it's up again for negotiation, I do think there's going to be some concessions made because I think fans are upset as well. And free agency, the offseason, is a big point for the NBA. There's a lot of interest that's garnered through it, and it's only advantageous for the NBA to have a little bit more player movement, some dynamics going on there to keep fans interested and locked in throughout the year. So, but I mean, I do think that it's a little bit too restrictive, and we know that it was targeted at kind of stopping teams like the Warriors from doing what they were able to do. Now, they were in a unique position because at the time when they added Durant, they still had their core on pretty manageable contracts. We'll see how this plays out for teams like Oklahoma City.
Can I say one thing? The reason we got Durant, and it's important to say, is because of the media deal that came in that year. So the salary cap exploded, allowing us to get Durant. If it happened any other year, the Warriors wouldn't have had the cap space to make it happen. So that's an anomaly. So I agree with you. But the context of it, you have to talk about.
Right. Exactly. But I do think
10 minutes left. Okay, people.
Something will change and get tweaked here. There's going to be too much backlash from a lot of the front offices who are handcuffed and unable to get anything done as well. So I think it gets tweaked at some point down the road.
I agree, but the new CBA is just kicking in. I should have looked this up beforehand. Maybe you can look this up as we talk. When is the mutual buyout clause if they both want to opt out, or there's a no opt out at all? Because I think it runs into 2032, if I remember correctly, or 2035. Maybe it might be a 10-year deal.
Let's see. Because
like the NFL has an opt out at 2028 or 2029, and the NFL is definitely opting out of their deal, so they're going to get higher media rights deal. I don't know if the NBA has an opt out of their deal.
Let me see. I'm trying to get come on, man. Looks like a 2029. Either side can opt out after the 2028-2029 season.
So that gives us another 5 seasons.
Great. That's going to destroy the Warriors, honestly, because they're not on the 2 timeline anymore. They're going to have to nail every single draft pick and start drafting higher in the post-Steph years.
Correct. And I think you made a really good point I want to touch on is like, it felt like there were a bunch of fireworks leading up to free agency. Oh my God, the talk of the town is this and that and et cetera, et cetera. And then what happened? Day one, news, and then everything just dried up and there's been nothing happening.
Right. I think there'll still be some movement here trade-wise, but it's going to be wrapped up pretty soon.
So that takes us then to, as we round third here.
I think we got 10 seconds left on this recording.
Oh, does it say 10? No.
On my side.
No, it says we got 8 minutes left. We're good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I can't read.
So the question is, what happens with the Warriors? We know that in summer. Actually, hey, Arthur, move this way a little bit, just so you're there. Perfect. Make sure you're full on the camera. This is called recording from 2 different places.
Hey.
So Warriors Summer League's happening. We know the reports. Kaminga is going to meet with the Warriors and meet with other teams in Summer League. Do we think that becomes fruitful for the Warriors or not?
I think that becomes hey, let's figure out this short-term deal here. Nothing else is working out. There's no way to be moved to a team that you want to go to. I think that they're going to have to come to some sort of compromise here to move forward. But, I do think that Kaminga's side is still going to continue to push and explore options for the trade because another year for him in Golden State could be even more disastrous for his value. If this narrative continues to play out, it could be really bad. He needs to be in another spot for his future. His agent is very motivated to get him to another spot so that he can continue to build and have a long-term career and the highest earning possible that he can make there. So ultimately, my vote or my guess is that he's going to be back on the Warriors short term and get moved at the deadline. That's my guess here. They'll come to a compromise there. He'll realize that it'll be a better situation for him in that regard, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
And if that happens, I think doing the qualifying offer is the best option, because if he's moved at the deadline for 7.9 million, he's a free agent no matter what next year. He could get moved to a team he doesn't want to be, or maybe it's a test run and then he re-signs with them, or he's like, hey, you know what? I want to explore all my options. 8 million for 1 year. That puts you right there in the middle of people we've seen between 5 to 10 million. And look at his stats. Yeah, he's a great player. Great player is a strong word. He did great in situations, but there's still liabilities there where I think he needs to work on. Will he get the time with the Warriors? No. But at least next year, he can control his future. And I think that's very important to him.
Right. Yeah, because you look at it, he's still only going to be 23 at that point. So many years of earning potential ahead. And, I just think that that's going to be the best bet for him and his agent, who I think it's interesting when you look into his agent a little bit deeper, Aaron Turner there. He doesn't represent a lot of high profile players. He's a little bit newer, maybe about a decade of NBA experience. I think that he overplayed his hand here and really made a mistake with all of this and the guidance there, not taking into consideration the market dynamics and the CBA. So I would, if I'm Kaminga, I'm a little bit hesitant to follow some of his advice there going forward.
It would be interesting to see, based off of that, if Kaminga keeps him when this is all over. Or maybe next year, if he does become a unrestricted free agent, he looks at new representation.
I would absolutely. If I got this advice to gamble on myself this year and it blew up the way it did, I would definitely be looking for someone else to represent me.
If I was getting offered $8 million to do my job, I would take it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, but if you know the market dynamics of the NBA and that a team may overpay for you, you may be interested in exploring that route. But it was a huge gamble.
I agree. And folks, we will keep you updated on everything you need to know Warriors land. We do a great job. Summer league's in session. Free agency is in session. Trades are happening. So Arthur and myself, we're here for you. We read all the comments. We sometimes crash out on some of the comments because our only goal is to inform, educate, and share information. And you guys can do what you want with it.
Yeah, exactly. We try to bring you the best possible source. We look into all of this stuff really deeply. I mean, it consumes a lot of my day. I know you're busy with work and reporting other news.
You're a dad to a less than 1 year old. You're pretty busy yourself.
Yeah, so it's busy. So when she goes down for a nap, I'm reading all these things, looking into it, trying to connect the dots to bring the information to you because it's confusing to me sometimes. And so I really want to be like, oh, what question would I want answered and what breakdown would I want? And that's how, I try to make the videos and try to break some of this stuff down.
Yeah, and that's why he gets much more views on his video than me.
No, it's because I like to talk about the rumors and you're incredible with the analysis on the court and what's going on. And you've been the cornerstone of this community and building the community and really tapped into what the community here of Warriors Digest is interested in getting those updates and development on players and all of that. And I mean, I think that it's a great two-headed monster here to be able to bring all different angles and all news to the Warriors fans.
We're a great Starsky and Hutch for all the old school people out there.
Right.
So if people want to find you, Arthur, if they want to follow you on socials, is there a way?
Yeah, at Could Be Arthur on every platform. You can find me there. Anywhere you go.
And then I am Randy Silver TV. Is it there? On all socials.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
And if you're a Cornhusker fan, make sure to follow me because we got football season and volleyball season coming up in 2 months.
Damn, it's going to be crazy. You're going to be busy, man. It's crazy.
Hey, never not busy enough to talk Warriors. The good thing with my job is, because as we know, sports happen in the evenings, my mornings are pretty free. So I work 1:30 p.m. to 8:30, 9:30. Obviously, if there's a Saturday football game at 12 o'clock, I'm early or whatever. But what I'm trying to say is my mornings are free for Warriors, and it's in my blood.
Right. And the sports just never stops. It's
No.
24/7, always going, always stuff to talk about.
So if you guys have any questions, comments, put them in, and we will see you guys on the next episode, hopefully with positive Kaminga news.
Yes.